Hey folks, this is an introduction to relations and functions, and what I'd like to do in this video is simply go through 4 different types of notation for sets, ways to write down sets of numbers. The first set is going to be the interval notation. Interval notation, first of all, is only going to use 2 numbers at a time. And secondly, they're going to be using the square brackets or the round parentheses. Square brackets are when you're including a number, round parentheses when you don't include the number. So let's look at some examples. First example is the set from negative infinity to 4, where I'm not including the 4. The second example is from negative 7 to 3. So I'm starting my set at negative 7. I'm ending my set at positive 3, not including the negative 7, but I am including the 3. The third example is the set from 10 to 12, where I include both of those numbers. And my fourth example, the set from negative 10 to infinity, starting at negative 10, ending at positive infinity. Couple of comments on these. First of all, always use the round parentheses on an infinity. And second thing is the 2 numbers should always be in order. So the one that is the lesser number should be first, and the one that is the greater number is the second. Set builder notation is next. So for set builder, you'll always use the curly Q brackets. Secondly, you're always going to use this notation that says X, and there's a bar there. That bar stands for such that. So this is X such that. That's how you would read that. And thirdly, you're going to be using a description. And typically, this is not an English description. This is a math description. You'll be using greater thans and less thans. You'll be using those symbols to describe your set. So some examples on here. The first one is the way that you read this, X such that X is less than 4. When I see this X, I kind of like to think of that as all of the numbers in my set. So I realize that my description here is that all of the numbers in my set are less than 4. For the record, and hopefully you've kind of made this connection, this set and this set back up in the interval notation, those two are the exact same set. It's 2 different ways of writing the same set. Both of those are showing the set of numbers that are less than 4. The next example for set builder notation, we have a different way of writing this one. Notice that the X is in the middle here. So we would read this X such that X, or all of my numbers, are between negative 7 and 3. Not including the negative 7, but I am including the 3. So anytime the X is in the middle, you're going to use the word between. And more comments about this, notice that the negative 7 is the lesser number, so it has to go first. Once again, I've given you the exact same set 2 different times, once in interval notation and once in set builder notation. The third example is going to be X such that, here it is again, X is between 10 and 12. And then the fourth example, X such that all of my numbers in my set are greater than or equal to negative 10. And again, for those last 2, again, I have matched them up with the interval notation so that you can see those written 2 different ways, the exact same set. Now let's continue with graphing. So this is a third way of showing our set of numbers. Graphing is where we're going to be using a number line. And once again, just like in the interval notation, we're going to use the square brackets and the round parentheses. Now I haven't actually graphed anything to unhide except for the number lines and the numbers. And so what I'd like to do is graph those sets that I've already given you. So let's graph that first set of numbers where all of my numbers in my set are less than 4. So on the 4, we're going to use the round parentheses, just like we did up here on the interval notation. And we want all of the numbers less than that. So that's going to be to the left. For the next example, I want all of the numbers between negative 7 and 3. And once again, I want to use the same symbols that I used back up in the interval notation. So I'm going to have a round parentheses on the negative 7, a square bracket on the 3, and everything in between. For the third set that I gave you, all of my numbers are between 10 and 12. Let's use the square brackets on both, color everything in between. And then for the last set of numbers that I gave you, all of my numbers in my set are greater than or equal to -10. Let's put a square bracket on the -10, and I'm going to cover everything to the right, everything greater than or equal to the -10. The last set, the last notation is different than the first three. The first three basically talk about an infinite set of numbers, but the last set talks about just a very small set of numbers. So for listing notation, first of all, we're going to be using curly brackets. Secondly, we're only going to be using this notation with small sets of numbers, not with large sets. And then lastly, you're just going to list the elements out. So some examples of this, you've got maybe the example with just 3 elements in it, -2, 4, and 7. Or for number 19, for the next example, you have an example of the elements 10, 11, and 12. Now I have a question on this one before I go back to the next one. And what I want you to do is write down the answer to your question because you're going to be turning this in. And so what I would like to know for this next part is the set that I gave you in the interval and set builder notation, as well as the graph, is that the exact same set as this listing notation set? So what you're going to do is write down your answer. This is going to be a yes or no question, but it's not just a 50-50 chance where you get to guess. I want you to explain to me, why do you think they are exact same set, or why do you think they are not the exact same set? So you're going to give me an explanation. Are they the same set? Bring that to class with you. You are going to be turning that in for credit. A couple more examples for the listing notation. You have a set with just -1 and 0 in it. Maybe a set with just 1 element in it, the number 10. Or another set with 3 in it, 15, 21, and -4. The last thing I'd like for you to do is I'd like for you to take this chart and fill it out by marking which methods use the certain symbols that they have in it. Bring that ready with you to class as well.